Finally got my compost. Guy that was gonna deliver it, he couldn't get into his materials and mix it up and stuff and deliver it. So I contacted the place where I've always bought it in the past, and they actually were open for business now, and decided to take a ride down. Got a little problem. My trailer's not registered because the DMV offices have all been closed for 8 weeks now. So I took a chance and didn't have a problem. So went down. I got 2 yards, and here it is in the trailer. You can see it's beautiful stuff, but it's definitely not 2 yards there. I asked the loader operator when he put it on, "You sure that's 2 yards?" He said, "Yeah." And I think it's a little bit less, but everything was really wet and packed down and stuff, so I didn't really worry too much about it. And it's really beautiful compost. So they get $48 a yard for it this year. So I got this home here, and it's time to start unloading it. And couldn't really get the dump trailer in a flat spot because of all the mud and stuff. We've had so much rain, the yard's just a total mess. It's only limited where I could get the trailer in. So wound up doing it with the wheelbarrow, and then I'm putting it in all the boxes, filling them up. Each of these raised beds, I was a little bit nervous about trying to push a wheelbarrow up against them and dump it over the edge, so I decided to shovel it in and not take a chance of possibly bending them or something like that. So it really wasn't too bad. It took a while to get it all shoveled in and get the boxes filled up, but this is what I needed to get going, and so finally I can get off to a good start on the garden now. And I will say this really was a beautiful batch of compost. So I did have enough here to get the new raised beds, these galvanized ones, all filled up, and to replace some in the aluminum bins too that I'll show you in a while. So you can see how nice and lightweight and fluffy this stuff is. And the one thing about compost, though, is you want to make sure that you've got some dirt with worms down in the below it or in the box, or put some worms in with it, because usually they take the compost worms out of it because it gets so hot it would kill a normal earthworm. So you want to make sure you add your own worms in the end. But there they are. The boxes are getting filled up, and I threw a little bit more over that potato box too that I had planted. There it is, and a couple more inches on there. So everything's looking good now and ready to go. So this one box here, I'm gonna just plant some strike beans in. Usually we put them out in the garden, and I just plant like a tricolor bean in these boxes to get going. But this year we really we have plenty of canned beans left over, and we have plenty of the dill beans left over in the root cellar. So we did enough last year that I don't have to worry. So I'm just gonna plant some of these, and these strike beans are our favorites, and they give us a nice harvest of beans that lasts for a couple months. So they're the best option for now. And these are seeds that I had saved 2 years ago, and so I'm just going to throw a couple extra in here in case there's any problems with the germination, but there usually isn't. These are usually really reliable. So you can see the compost is it's just beautiful. And the one thing about compost also is there's no weeds that will grow in it, because all the weed seeds have been killed by the heat when it's properly done, unlike the compost that I make, where there's still a chance of weeds. So this stuff is really just beautiful, and you want to make sure you cover the beans good, because the birds will come down and find them if you don't. And then another bed, I'm going to start some of this slow bolt cilantro, and I saved the seeds from the previous year here, and this stuff is pretty good because it can take a little bit of heat before it bolts, so it will go longer than the normal cilantro, and exact same flavor. So I'm just using that little plastic seeder that I've got to spread the seeds out there, cover them over, and then I'm going to throw a couple rows of basil in by it. And these are seeds I saved from last year also. Now I kind of just ground up the pods after I dried them, so there's a mixture of seeds in the pod material. So I'm just going to spread it thinly through there, and I'll thin it out later if I get too many seeds in there. But you can see here, everybody asks if I save seeds, and I do save things like this that don't cross pollinate. And then cucumbers, these are new seeds that I bought this year. I like to buy fresh cucumber seeds, and all these trellises on the end of the boxes will have cucumbers growing on them. So I'm just going to put a couple seeds in around each of the sticks there, and hopefully thin them down to the best one on each stick once he gets going. Now, this is that Milorganite that I always tell you about that I use to keep the animals away. It is the stinkiest fertilizer you ever smell. It really doesn't have a lot of fertilizing value, and it's a natural product made from sewerage. And I like to go back after I get things planted and just sprinkle some of it on there. And deer will not come near it. They'll stay away from the fenced-in area with it. And also, it seems to help cats that like to dig in fresh dirt and compost and stuff like that. So, I found that really works for me. I don't know if it'll work for you or not, but it's really solved most of my animal problems. Then I went over to the those aluminum beds, and I started digging out. I took about 6 inches of dirt out of each one of them and went back, and I'm just topping it off with the fresh compost here. Just because it's been a couple of years since I've had compost. So same thing, doing it with a wheelbarrow and a shovel. It's kind of slow, but it gets done a little bit at a time. So I just have to go down this row here and clean them up. And like I said before, I got the trailer. It's you can't really see the angle here because the camera's sitting on an angle too, but it's too much of an angle to dump it, so I'm just shoveling it out. And you can actually see also how this stuff does fluff up when you shovel it. So, maybe I did get a good load, but I don't know. But I'm real happy with the quality of it. So I'm just doing it a wheelbarrow at a time. And by 8 o'clock that night, trailer was empty, and all the beds were full, and stuff was planted. So it was a 12-hour day, but I did get a lot done and got everything ready to go here. And I'll be doing new boxes along the outside later in the next video. That's all done, and then I got all but 3 of the planters on the outside dug out and topped off with compost to get going with in the morning. And the last 3 are still in a terrible shape. I still have to clean them out good, but so next morning I thought I'd take you for a ride down to get some compost. They're pulling out early in the morning. Oops, camera fell off the dash there. I thought it would just stay, but it didn't. And this is a ride from my house down to pick up some compost. It's about 16 miles, I guess, and normally takes a little over 20 minutes to get down there, and this is just kind of condensing it down to a little bit over a minute. So it is moving kind of fast, but you can see it's starting to see some leaves on the trees around here, and actually starting to see a little bit of traffic on the highways now too, which they were really quiet for quite some time. And so here we are down, this is a small town called Palmyra that's down south of me. And this is where the Mormon religion actually got started. They do have a big setup down here where they do a giant performance every summer. And it was right over on the left there. So I'm headed over. You can see it's pretty much all country roads heading over there to get the compost. And there we are. I got another load, and this time you can see I got a much better load. It's probably about half a yard extra this time, and it's a completely different compost than what I got yesterday. This is a more of a leaf-based compost, and like I said, you get a different one every time you go, but usually they all work the same in the end. So get that all ready to do those last couple beds on the end there and stuff. And turned out just a gorgeous day out today, so I'm going to start planting. Tonight's supposed to be down to about 45, they're saying, so the plant should be safe. And I figured I'm gonna give it a go. After tonight, I think it's supposed to be up in the mid 50s every night for the next week. So, it's a good time to get started. So first thing I'm going to start with are these are eggplants. These are those Rosa Biancas that we really love them doing in this first bin. And you can see they really did great this year. All my plants that I started did much better this year. I think it was because I switched to that organic Miracle-Gro potting soil this year that was mostly compost that Costco started handling. And all my plants seem to be healthier and stronger and bigger. So there is pretty brutal sunshine now, and it's starting to get pretty windy now, so it's not really a great combination for planting. I was hoping for a cloudy, damp day, but you don't always get them. So I'm doing this anyway. It's kind of tough on the plants, but they should survive. And there you can get an idea of just how beautiful those eggplants are. And these these styrofoam cups, I just use them over and over every year, and haven't had a problem with them. They really do give you a nice large root system to get buried in the ground. And you got to make sure that you put a piece of string and tie them up to some stakes as you go, because the wind will really tear them up good. Last year, actually, if you saw some of the videos, the wind actually ripped the leaves right off the plant in the first couple of days. So I'm hoping we don't get into that, but it looks like nothing but sunshine in mid 70s to 80s for the next week. So it's a good time to get going. So I've got 4 different types of eggplants that I'm planting, and I'm gonna put them in the 3 bins up front here. And that compost is just so beautiful to work with. And again, they all need to be tied up just because of the wind. And I'm just throwing one of the marigolds in the center of each batch of these, just hopefully to help with those little bugs that get them. So I got the first 3 bins there filled with eggplants, and a marigold in the center of each. You can see the sun and the wind is really starting to take a beating on them, but they'll pick up tomorrow. And a couple extra in case I do lose some. So now I'm going to start moving into the peppers, and I always say I'm cutting back on peppers, but oh my god, I'm going to have about 10 bins full of peppers again this year. So somehow my cutting back didn't work. I just love peppers though, so just love all the different types and flavors, and love grilling them and doing the roasted red peppers, and so they're my favorite. So same thing here, just putting the pepper plants out, and they're all in really great shape. Tying them up just because of the winds. And actually I found one of them had a little frog on the bottom of a leaf. Must have crawled up on the porch when I had him outside hardening them off, and this little guy has a new home now. He's moved down there in the bin with the rest of them. That's the first time I ever had a frog I didn't know was there. Usually we get the toads that are buried in the dirt and stuff like that. But I'm just gonna go down the rows here, and you can see how to get my my big sun hat out, because it's just brutal out here with the sun. There's not a cloud in the sky at all today, and it just keeps getting warmer and warmer. So I'm getting this next bin planted, and I got right down to those last 3 bins. You can see they're just a total mess from last year. I still have to dig them out and put new compost in them and stuff. But basically all the rest of these are planted now. And then I have one left here that I'm going to put ochre in. And last couple of years I've had trouble with it germinating. And last year somebody said, well, you're supposed to soak it overnight in water. So I've never done that before, and I decided to try it this year. So, you can learn a lot from the comments of your subscribers. So I figured I'd try it and see if it makes a difference. So I'm going to be working on the those beds there for tomatoes and more beds across the back in the next video. But I figured I'd stop here for now, and I still have to replace all that mulch in the center here and stuff, and I'm going to be adding gravel in there and stuff too to some of them. But you can see this compost, just a beautiful material to work with, and it does give you wonderful plants without having to use any fertilizer. And everything, finally, it's good to see things growing already and taking off and just getting started. Feels good to have that cold weather finally break. I just thought I'd do an update to let you know that I'm finally getting started planting things, and hopefully the next video everything will be in the ground. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.